A congresswoman calls racism, and it sounds a lot like the Jussie Smollett hoax crime. We'll give you all the details. Plus, Representative Dan Goldman bullies an angel mom whose daughter died because of the fentanyl crisis. This guy's a real piece of work. And Jerry Seinfeld, Ben Backus, and Rob Schneider making comedy funny again. All of that coming up now.
I was walking from the House building on Capitol Hill to the Capitol, and a white guy, stopped me and told me I could not get into the members' elevator. And, you know, we have pens, and I was going to vote. And he blocked me from getting into the elevator and told me I was not a member of Congress and it was for members only. I said, "Sir, I'm a member of Congress." And I showed him my pen, and he said, "Whose pen did you steal?" Now, this is an example of what personal racism is and how people of color constantly have to deal with this each and every day.
That's Representative Barbara Lee of California telling a story that I don't think anybody actually believes. I wish Kaitlan Collins, the anchor there from CNN, had actually asked some follow-up questions and gotten more details so we can discover whether it's true or not. But of course, she didn't do that. More on Kaitlan Collins in a minute, but this is outrageous. You know, this is a sitting congresswoman making an accusation against an anonymous man. We don't know his name. We don't know where he works. We don't know what he does. We don't know why he was stopping her from going into an elevator, a congressional elevator. Was he security? Was he Capitol Police? We don't know any of that. She's telling this story for one person and one reason only: to paint all of America as racist. This is Barbara Lee using this story that cannot be verified to paint all of America, to paint you as systemically racist. And it's despicable. Let's go back to the beginning of this interview. Again, Kaitlan Collins, CNN, with Barbara Lee. Barbara Lee, by the way, her one distinguishing vote, the only reason why Barbara Lee should be memorable to anyone in America is that after September 11th, when we mobilized our armed forces to go after al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, this is not the Iraq War. This was the direct retaliation to the 9/11 attacks. And President George W. Bush asked for authorization from Congress for military intervention in Afghanistan to go after Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda. Barbara Lee was the one person to vote no. That's who Barbara Lee is. And now here she is talking about racism on CNN.
These are not little kinks, first of all. Racism, institutional racism, is in the DNA of this country. When you look at what has taken place, look at our Native Americans, the genocide of Native Americans. When you look at what is taking place as it relates to African Americans, the 250 years plus of enslaving African Americans, and then you look at the disparities now in our community in terms of healthcare, unemployment, the wealth gap, housing. You can't tell me that systemic racism does not exist. It's not just a little kink. Secondly, you have personal racism, which is hard to address, but I'll give you one little story that shows you why we need to understand that I don't think she really understands racism. I was walking from the House building on Capitol Hill to the Capitol, and a white guy, stopped me and told me I could not get into the members' elevator. And, you know, we have pens, and I was going to vote. And he blocked me from getting into the elevator and told me I was not a member of Congress and it was for members only. I said, "Sir, I'm a member of Congress." And I showed him my pen, and he said, "Whose pen did you steal?" Now, this is an example of what personal racism is and how people of color constantly have to deal with this each and every day. But systemic racism is in the policies of this country. And just look at what they're trying to do in terms of eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're trying to not allow for an equal and level playing field. And so it's a very dangerous position that she has. She's clueless.
Well, that's a shame, and I'm sorry that you had to deal with that, Congresswoman. Thank you for sharing that with us.
I'm sorry you had to deal with that thing that we're just going to assume is true and accept at face value, this outrageous, disgusting story of racism that happened on Capitol Hill from somebody who apparently is in authority because he can bar Barbara Lee, a congresswoman, from going into an elevator that's for members only. I'm really sorry that that happened, and we're not going to ask any more questions about it. We're just going to assume that it's true. Thanks for joining us, Congresswoman. That's some great journalism there. Honestly, I have a few questions. Sorry Barbara Lee isn't here with us. I'd love to interview her about this. When did this happen exactly? Is this recent? When? Tell me when it happened. And where did it happen exactly? All you said was you were walking from your congressional building. Was it the Cannon office building? Was it Longfellow? Where were you walking from? And was this actually in the Capitol building itself? Was this a person, a security guard? Was it a member of the Capitol Police Force? Did you get their name? Did you reprimand them? Did you file a complaint at that time? You are a member of Congress. If you're treated that way, you should actually do something about it. What did you do about it? You're empowered, ma'am. You're not a victim here. What'd you do? Did you file a complaint? Can we get the complaint? Did you get the name of the person? Let me ask you something. If this happened to any person that you know in your life, if they were treated like this, and you suspected them of being racist, would you not have gotten more information about it? I know I would have. And I would have encouraged anyone in my life to have gotten more information, to get the person's name, to make a stink out of it. By the way, speaking of making a stink, this is Representative Barbara Lee, rabble-rousing, hate-mongering Democrat from California. Her entire persona is to raise a stink about things. I mean, here she is using this story to attack Nikki Haley, saying Nikki Haley doesn't really know about racism. Let me tell you my story about racism. Does anyone really believe that Barbara Lee wouldn't have immediately made a federal issue out of this if it had really happened? I mean, seriously. Why is this the first we're hearing about it? Barbara Lee would have called a press conference at that moment. Barbara Lee would have sued this guy. I'm sorry. I wish I could believe it. And if there were a journalist involved in this interview, Kaitlan Collins, we would have gotten more information about it so that we would have known and gotten it verified that it was true. Instead, all we got was this.
She's clueless.
Well, that's a shame, and I'm sorry that you had to deal with that, Congresswoman. Thank you for sharing that with us, and thanks.
I am so sorry that this happened to you. May I apologize to you on behalf of all white racists. Wow, Kaitlan, that's some good stuff. Good job, CNN, by the way. Great hire there. We posted this video at Town Hall, at Town Hall's X feed, by the way, and one of our great followers there actually thinks they found the culprits. Which one of these two was the white guy there, Congresswoman Lee? Or should we call you Congresswoman Jussie? It's outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. But, that's what you get with Congresswomen like Barbara Lee.
It would help to stop the fentanyl trade and fentanyl trafficking from coming into this country if we had more law enforcement officers at the border and more resources and technology to stop the fentanyl from coming in. Do you agree with that?
I disagree with that because Border Patrol is now being used to make sandwiches and to screen people and let them into our country.
Okay, well,
so I disagree with you.
So you're saying that you're saying that you're upset because the Border Patrol is not doing is making sandwiches, I think you said. So you don't think it would be helpful to have more Border Patrol officers who are charged with stopping the fentanyl trade?
I would like the Border Patrol to be able to do the job that they were hired to do.
Well,
every Border Patrol officer that I have spoken to has told me that their hands are tied by this administration and Mr. Mayorkas. I've been to the border, sir. Have you? Have you?
Excuse me. I'm asking the question.
I'm just wondering.
That was Representative Dan Goldman of New York, a Democrat, arguing with a witness in the House of Representatives. And that's not uncommon. You usually see Congress, especially this guy, Dan Goldman, getting combative with a witness if he doesn't like what they have to say. The difference here, though, is that witness was a woman named Josephine Dunn, who was at the hearing of the Homeland Security Committee to participate in the impeachment process of Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. And the expertise that she brought to the table here was the fact that she has recently lost her daughter to the fentanyl crisis. And Dan Goldman decided that she was the person that he wanted to pick a fight with. I wish I could tell you that I was overstating the case and being hyperbolic, but Dan Goldman literally treated this woman like she was trash. Now, just so you can set it up here, let me show you exactly what she had to say and why she was there specifically with regard to the Homeland Security Secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas. This is Congressman McCall of Texas talking to her before Goldman got a hold of her.
And protect the Constitution and the American people, air, land, and sea from enemies, foreign and domestic. Ms. Dunn, do you believe he violated that oath?
Yes, sir. I flew from Arizona to meet him and face him and ask him why. And he's not here today. I did not know that until after I landed yesterday.
And he doesn't have the decency
No,
to even show up
that is correct.
and talk to you personally.
Today is my daughter's birthday. I would have much rather been home with my poor husband grieving her. I didn't need to be here today. So whatever he's doing, I hope it's more important than that.
Let me say I'm sorry,
Thank you.
because apparently the secretary doesn't care to show up and say that to you.
Josephine Dunn and what happened to her daughter is exactly why Alejandro Mayorkas should be impeached. She's the perfect witness to have there. Alejandro Mayorkas, who has said under oath multiple times that there is no crisis at the border, that the border is secure, and has deflected any questions or charges about how fentanyl is poisoning Americans on a regular basis, and they're doing nothing to stop the flow on our border. Josephine Dunn and what happened to her daughter and the grief and the pain that she is feeling on a regular basis, that's exactly why he should lose his job. It's exactly why he should be impeached. Frankly, it's why President Biden should have fired him months ago, if not years ago. In fact, the fact that Joe Biden hasn't fired Alejandro Mayorkas can lead us, we American citizens, voters, to only one conclusion, and that is he is doing exactly what Joe Biden wants done on the border. And the net result is Josephine Dunn is now a grieving mother who has lost her daughter. So enter Representative Dan Goldman, the latest bulldog for the Democrats. This is a man who has inherited all of his wealth from the Levi Strauss fortune. He is running in a congressional district that he basically purchased in New York and will pretty much run unopposed for the rest of his career. So he is the perfect person for the Democrats to trot out and do despicable things like you're about to see. Here's the entirety of his questioning of Ms. Dunn.
Yield to now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman, for 5 minutes questioning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I thank our witnesses for being here today, Ms. Nobles and Ms. Dunn. I just want to express my sincere condolences. I was a federal prosecutor for 10 years who charged people for gang-related and drug trafficking crimes. Unfortunately, this is not the first time I've had to interact with families of victims, and my heart goes out to you. And I want to apologize in some.
The fake compassion, by the way, ends right there. Right there. If you thought, oh, that's nice that he offered his condolences, well, okay, fine. Go ahead and give him that, 26 seconds of credit, because now he's about to throw it all in the shredder. Because now he wants to apologize to them for even being there for this hearing. Why? Why is he sorry that they're there? Watch.
Ways to you that you are here really to share your story, but you're being used as a fact witness for an impeachment investigation. And obviously, given what your experience has been, you don't have the background to understand what a high crime misdemeanor is and how it relates to this. And so I hope that you're handling that okay.
Did you pick up on that? I mean, he's pretty mealy-mouthed and not really good at delivering a clear and coherent thought, which, by the way, the fact that he's in Congress is, not outside the realm of possibility if he can't deliver a clear and coherent thought. But he just said that he served as a prosecutor for 10 years. Good Lord. What kind of legal malpractice was at play there? But if you actually break down what he just said to these grieving mothers who have lost children to the fentanyl crisis, he said, yeah, I'm sorry you're even here because this is about impeachment and you're not smart enough to understand what a high crime and misdemeanor is. You don't have the education necessary to actually bring anything to the table here in this proceeding. Now, if you actually believe that Dan Goldman is such a despicable human being that he reduced these women's even existence at the hearing yesterday to merely being used as an emotional political prop to tug on the heartstrings, to make people angry at Alejandro Mayorkas, if you agree with him that that's really the only reason they were there, okay. I mean, it's a pretty cynical, disgusting position to take, but let's stipulate that Dan Goldman is correct here. And they shouldn't even be there because they don't understand these high and lofty proceedings of impeachment. Well, if that's the case, Congressman Goldman, you should probably, out of decency, just say, and therefore, I will yield my 5 minutes. Because there's really no reason for you to be here other than to be manipulative and tell your stories so that people feel emotions about the loss of your children. But that's really irrelevant. If that's really what you believe, then just yield your time and say, I'll go ahead and defer to the next congressman, right? That would have been the decent thing to do if that's truly what you believe. But instead, he decided to attack these women and go after them and bully them and badger them because he's a jerk.
One of the things that the chairman said at the beginning of his opening statement was that he wishes that Democrats would turn our sympathy into action. And quite ironically said, thoughts and prayers are not enough. At first, I thought we were at a gun violence hearing where we were talking about the repeated thoughts and prayers of the 2 mass shootings that happen every day. But I do want to just go through some of the actions, as the chairman pointed out, turn sympathy into action. Because I assume, Ms. Dunn, you would agree, would you not, that it would help to stop the fentanyl trade and fentanyl trafficking from coming into this country if we had more law enforcement officers at the border and more resources and technology to stop the fentanyl from coming in? Do you agree with that?
I disagree with that because Border Patrol is now being used to make sandwiches and to screen people and let them into our country.
Okay, well,
so I disagree with you.
Well, let me just say, despite what Congressman Goldman said at the beginning there, saying that she doesn't have the background to understand this issue, she just displayed and demonstrated that she knows more about the failures at the border right now and about what's really at issue here, not with regard to funding and hiring more Border Patrol agents, but about the rules of engagement and what the Border Patrol agents are actually doing on the job. She knows more about the problem than Representative Dan Goldman and, dare I say, the President of the United States.
So you're saying that you're upset because the Border Patrol is not doing is making sandwiches, I think you said.
She's upset that the Border Patrol is not protecting the border, which is kind of their job.
So you don't think it would be helpful to have more Border Patrol officers who are charged with stopping the fentanyl trade?
I would like the Border Patrol to be able to do the job that they were hired to do.
Well,
every Border Patrol officer that I have spoken to has told me that their hands are tied by this administration and Mr. Mayorkas. I've been to the
Well-
border, sir. Have you? Have you?
Excuse me, I'm asking the question.
I'm just wondering.
And the problem with that is that in Congress, this Congress, we have interviewed 9 senior officials under DHS in a variety of different capacities. Every single one of them has said that it would be helpful to provide more resources at the border to stop the flow of fentanyl coming in. And that is actually exactly what President Biden has done. In last year's budget, fiscal year 2023, the appropriations, it included 300 additional U.S. Border Patrol agents, which was the first increase since 2011. Included 125 more CBP officers, $70 million for non-intrusive inspection, and 200 House Republicans, including every single Republican serving at the time who currently sits on this committee, voted against that bill. Under the Biden administration, the Department of Homeland Security has seized more fentanyl and arrested more criminals for fentanyl-related crimes in the last 2 years than in the previous 5 years combined.
You know, I know that it's painful to watch somebody like that, and I know that he's despicable, and I know that he makes your skin crawl, but I got to tell you something. I want to see more of Representative Dan Goldman. I want to see more of that smug, supercilious, arrogant jerk, because Democrats love him. The left thinks he's fantastic. And you know what? He perfectly represents exactly where the Democrats are right now in this country. Sad to say.
How do you go about picking the guests for the show?
Just people I think are funny. See, I could never do a regular talk show because you've got to fill the container every night.
Right.
And there's just not enough people that I really want to talk to.
I have noticed that most of the guests are mostly white males of 22 episodes.
Yeah, let's get into that.
No, but you
take a look over here, Peter. What do you see? A lot of whiteys. What's going on here? But this really pisses me off. But go ahead. Really pisses me off. People think it's the census or something. I mean, this has got to represent the actual pie chart of America. Who cares? It's just funny. You know, funny is the world that I live in. You're funny, I'm interested. You're not funny, I'm not interested. Okay. And I have no interest in gender or race or anything like that. But everyone else is kind of with their little calculating, is this the exact right mix? You know, I think that's, to me, it's anti-comedy.
Didn't you say?
Now, you may have seen that clip floating around recently. It's actually 10 years old, believe it or not. Jerry Seinfeld, of course, pushing back on this woke New York left-wing liberal reporter who's trying to call him out for his TV show, his streaming show, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, which is brilliant and hilarious, for saying, well, you know, most of the people you're interviewing there are white males. And the response is cathartic. It is so good to see Jerry Seinfeld do this. And by the way, when he said, this really pisses me off, that was real. That was genuine. You could see it in his eyes. It does piss him off, and it should. It should. 10 years ago, this happened. And now look at where comedy has gone. I mean, how often have we bemoaned the fact that Saturday Night Live isn't funny anymore because their goal isn't to be funny? You see, when Jerry Seinfeld sums this up and says, you know, I don't care about black, I don't care about white, I care about funny. It's about comedy. You either are funny or you're not funny. And that used to be the measuring stick when it came to entertainment, whether it's comedy or music or drama or that. I mean, we've now learned that the Academy Awards are actually only allowing movies to be nominated for Best Picture if it's about certain racial groups or if the racial groups are represented properly in the casting and the creative team. Seriously, that's actually part of the criteria now. Some team of totally white men might make the greatest movie ever made, but it won't be eligible for an Oscar because they don't check the boxes that the Academy has put forth. Literally. And you wonder why we're seeing so much dreck right now coming out of Hollywood. And God bless Jerry Seinfeld for calling it. That was 10 years ago, and look at where we are now. However, I have to say something is happening, especially in comedy, because the pendulum has swung so far to that direction, and comedy has become so woke. And there's just some things that you can't joke about and you can't make fun of. Otherwise, you might run the risk of being canceled. That we actually now have comedians saying, screw it. You're not going to tell me what I can and can't make fun of. That's the whole point of comedy, is to make fun of the things that you're not supposed to make fun of. You go all the way back to court jesters. The whole reason for their existence was to laugh at the king. Why did you make fun of the king when you were a court jester? Well, because they were authoritarian jerks. And if you're not laughing at the king, you're crying. Even the kings back then understood that. So they allowed the jester to do his thing because it let off a little steam. And that way there wasn't a revolution. Laugh at the king or it'll make you cry. And so now we've got comedians saying, oh, to hell with it. Good example, Rob Schneider. Now, Rob Schneider has come out totally out in the open as a conservative. He does conservative talk shows. He recently converted to Catholicism. And he finds a lot of humor in the insane, woke, transgender agenda that you're seeing out there today. And this clip is going viral about the CEO of United Airlines.
The CEO of United Airlines last month, the CEO, he announced of all the hiring for all the new pilots that are coming up this year, all the hiring for the new pilots, the main focus is going to be diversity. What? Diversity? Not the best pilots you can find? The ones with the most hours of experience? Ones you've done it before? Mm-hmm. Nope, diversity. I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of flying all the time with these white pilots landing safely and on time. Boring.
All right, so that resonates because it's true, and it's what we're all thinking. And that's what comedy is supposed to do. It's supposed to reflect our inner thoughts. It's supposed to reflect the ridiculousness of the world we're living in. That's what it's always supposed to be, especially politically oriented humor. It's funny, these comedians, stand-up comedians always talk about how Lenny Bruce and Richard Pryor and George Carlin are their heroes. But if they're not doing comedy like that, well, they're spitting on the graves of those guys. See, back then, Richard Pryor and George Carlin and Lenny Bruce, the comedy that they would find, the people they were making fun of was the establishment. And that was mostly, you know, uptight white conservative dudes, right? Back then in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. Now the establishment are the crazy left-wing advocates for transgender or racial quotas or whatever it is. That's the establishment. That's the people in charge. And yes, they need to be made fun of too. God knows Lenny Bruce would. Which brings us to another guy who has been going viral quite a bit. This is a stand-up comedian. His name is Ben Backus, and he is taking it to another level with regard to what's being described as unwoke comedy. And we need to laugh. So I want you to watch this, and I want you to laugh.
I know the trans kid thing. It's like a sensitive issue now, right? But I'm a 90s kid. Like, I grew up watching South Park alone when I was 7. Yes! To me, the trans kid thing, it's really just the 2023 version of the kids with peanut allergies. Right? Because when I was a kid, that's what we were worried about. Right? We didn't have gender neutral signs. We had the peanut everywhere, right? We had the peanut with a circle and a line through it. And then under it was like, if you bring peanut butter into the school, that one kid that nobody really likes might die. Right? And then we all just brought it in. Even our parents didn't care. They were like, what? No peanut butter on the newsletter? Like, you're taking it. I remember my mom making me a sandwich one morning, just going, I don't care if that kid fucking dies. I'm taking a sandwich. Right? So then we bullied the shit out of those kids. Remember that? We had a spoonful of peanut butter. We were like, what are you, allergic to sandwiches? You're 7. You're a loser. Right? So over the decades, those kids just slowly, they slowly forgot who they were. And then come 2023, those kids are like, you know what? I want to dominate women's sports. It's the story of trans kids, everybody. It's really just the story of the revenge of the peanut butter allergy kids. Because nobody talks about allergies anymore. Your kid dies of an allergy, they're like, well, did he cut his peanuts off first? Because I don't really give a shit. What's he allergic to? Gay people? Well, he's a racist child then.
I mean, it's funny. It's funny and it's worth laughing at, for God's sake. But see, he's on the brink of being canceled. But here's the great thing about this guy. He didn't care. You go look at his Instagram or his YouTube and you'll see he doesn't care. The more you threaten to cancel him, actually, the more he swerves into it. There's a great couple of clips from a stand-up routine that he did where he interacts with the audience. This is the sign of a true comedian, by the way. You ask any other stand-up, is that great? And you got your jokes and you worked them. But when you start interacting live with the audience and you can be just pee your pants funny, then you know they're talented. And here's my favorite clip that's been going around. Again, Ben Backus interacting with one person who showed up in the front row with a mask on.
Are you sick, ma'am? Are you wearing that for safety or just to let everybody know who you're voting for? I think she's laughing. I can't tell. That's awesome. Thank you for coming despite your everything about you.
Yeah, get tickets at benbackus.com indeed. All right. Well, there's a lot going on in our world, and a lot of it makes us mad. A lot of it makes us frightened, and a lot of it makes us sad, frankly. And if we can't have some comedy in our lives where we can laugh at those very things that are freaking us out, well, all is lost. So good on Ben Backus, good on Rob Schneider, and yeah, the prophet Jerry Seinfeld 10 years ago calling this out. They keep this up, they might just make comedy funny again. That's it for today. Thanks for watching us. We'll be back next time. In the meantime, check us out all across the Town Hall Media social media platforms and like this, subscribe it, share it if you liked it. And we'll see you across all of our sites as well. Town Hall, Red State, Hot Air, PJ Media, Twitchy, and Bearing Arms. Did I get them all? I did. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.